What is going on, football fans? So day 2 of the NFL draft is complete. We've completed rounds 1 through 3. So I wanted to do a quick recap of what I thought of the New York Giants picks. I'm going to go over each pick individually and break them down. And I'll tell you whether or not I thought the pick was good based on need, based on value, and so on and so forth. Going into the draft, I had identified that the New York Giants' 4 biggest needs, in no specific order, were an edge rusher, a right tackle, cornerback, and a quarterback. And that's what I thought. I thought edge rusher, to me, was the most important because they couldn't get it. They haven't been able to get after the quarterback in years. They ranked, I think, 29th or 30th in sacks last year. They've been 29th or worse 3 out of the last 4 years. And you can't win consistently in the NFL if you can't get pressure on the opposing quarterback. Now, they did address some of that in the offseason with free agency by bringing in a Marcus Golden, but they also lost Olivier Vernon. They definitely needed to address the pass rush in this year's draft. Quarterback is self-explanatory. Eli Manning is getting up there in age, and they needed to address that very soon. Cornerback, Janoris Jenkins will be off the team soon. You also have Beal, who's a rookie who's never played. We need as much depth at corner as we could possibly get. And, of course, right tackle. I mean, right tackle right now, in my opinion, we don't have a starting right tackle. So I really thought they needed to address the right tackle pretty early in this year's draft. So without further ado, let's jump into it. At number 6, everybody knows who the Giants took, and that is Daniel Jones, the quarterback out of Duke. Now, based on value, I mean, I got to be honest. I got to give this pick at best a D-. I would honestly give it an F because I think they could have gotten Daniel Jones later at 17, and a lot of people argue that he wouldn't have fell to 17. Rumors came out that the Redskins were interested, whoever else. But then my argument to that was you could have still gotten Josh Allen, who I personally felt, I said the best player in the draft in my video. It was a reaction video. He probably was not the best player. Most people would say Bosa, Quinnen Williams. I had Quinnen Williams as my number 1. But I thought Josh Allen, in terms of need, in terms of fit for our defense, was the best player in this draft for the New York Giants. He's a perfect 3-4 outside linebacker. It was our biggest need. He's the best 3-4 OLB, in my opinion, in this draft. And the Giants could have snagged him at 6. And instead, they passed on him for Daniel Jones. Now, most experts had Daniel Jones as the 4th-ranked quarterback. Going into this draft, I probably had him locked neck and neck. I'm not a huge fan of Lock. And I see some of the upside in Daniel Jones. Now, I'm going to go over some of the positives from Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones plays for Sutcliffe, the same coach who coached Eli and Peyton Manning, a pro-style offense. He's a very smart quarterback, very cerebral, and he is very athletic. I think he ran a 4.61 40. He had a game this year in college. I think it was against North Carolina State, where he rushed for, I think, 180 yards. So he definitely has legs, which is why people compare him to Ryan Tannehill, who was an athlete coming into the league. Hopefully he works out a lot better than Ryan Tannehill did. Tannehill was picked similar. I think he was the 7th overall pick for the Dolphins. But obviously we hope that he's much better than that. We hope Daniel Jones is the next Eli Manning. Now, and the accuracy issues, I don't really worry about that too much. I don't read too much into that because I think he had a 60% completion percentage this year, just under 60%. And people look at Dwayne Haskins, who had a 70%, and same thing with Kyler Murray. But you have to factor in a few things here. One, the offense that Daniel Jones played in is much more complex and much more of a pro-style offense than the offense that both Dwayne Haskins and Kyler Murray played in. And I like Dwayne Haskins better, but it's just the truth. Dwayne Haskins played in an offense where he threw a lot of screen passes, a lot of checkdowns, a lot of first read throws. Daniel Jones was forced to read the field through his progressions. So that definitely plays a factor in the completion percentage. Another thing that plays a factor is, out of all the quarterbacks in this year's draft, Daniel Jones had more drop balls than any of them. And the offensive line was amongst one of the worst in the ACC conference and the country in terms of Power 5 conferences. So that also needs to be factored in. The level of talent around Daniel Jones, the level of talent he was going up against, he usually was the worst, one of the, not the better team when he was playing. Where when you look at Ohio State, you look at Oklahoma, they were usually the better team. So all that needs to be factored in. Daniel Jones, though, in terms of upside, it's not even close. Drew Lock has a much higher upside, in my opinion. Dwayne Haskins and Kyler Murray all have higher upside. Daniel Jones, coming out of high school, was a 0-star recruit. Okay? I mean, his arm strength, well, I will say it is better than Kyle Aletta. I have watched highlight films before the draft, and I was impressed with some of the things I saw. The guy has a better arm than I think some people give him credit for, but he does not have a good arm. That is certainly not his strength. His strength, I think, he's very good at the short and intermediate passes. He's good at maneuvering on the run. He is a good athlete. but he can't chuck it like a Dwayne Haskins can or a Drew Lock can or even a Kyler Murray can, in my opinion. So that is definitely his weakness. And coming to New York, dealing with the wins, that's concerning for me. Now, to be fair, Chad Pennington was a very good quarterback for the New York Jets, who played in the same stadium as the New York Giants, and he didn't have the best of arms, of course, before he got injured. So I'm not saying it can't be done. Another thing that scouts say about Daniel Jones is his release takes too long. He has to work on his release, but his technique is very good. He's very pro-ready. He was coached very well. His footwork is exceptional, and people compare in terms of his mechanics to Eli Manning. So that is probably why Gettleman liked him so much. Learned under the same coach, taught the same way as both Eli and his brother. So I'm going to give that pick in terms of value an F. In terms of need, I'll give it a B because it's definitely a need. And I just want to reiterate, I do not hate Daniel Jones. I hate him where he was picked. I thought we could have got him at 17 or still gotten Josh Allen and traded up to get our quarterback. Because now when you factor it in, yes, we would have to give up a lot of assets. We would have to give up the 17th. Probably would have to give up our second-round pick for sure, and maybe a future second, I don't know, to move back up and get Daniel Jones. But if they really wanted him, I would have preferred that and get Josh Allen. Because when you look at the player that we got at 17, well, I do like Dexter Lawrence. I think he's a good football player. He does not fit in today's modern-day NFL. He's what one of my subscribers called a three-down fatty. Now, he's good, and we all saw that Snacks Harrison was very good, and that's the type of player this guy is. He is a run stuffer. He's not going to get after the quarterback. He is going to stuff the run. He's going to put pressure up the middle, which you do need in a 3-4. But we already had B.J. Hill and Dalvin Tomlinson. Now, my guess is they're going to move B.J. Hill out to the end, which might not be the worst of ideas. B.J. Hill has some athleticism, and he's shown the ability to get after the quarterback. So we will have a guy that could get after the quarterback on the end, in the 3-4 defense. But that was not one of our biggest needs. It just wasn't. We needed a pass rusher, and that's not what this guy is. You still had Montez Sweat on the board there, as well as a bunch of other guys. But Montez Sweat was the top guy, in my opinion. And if they were going to go pass rusher there, that's what they should have done. I also could have gone Andre Dillard, Cody Ford. You had great right tackles there that they passed on for this guy. And again, I do like Dexter Lawrence, and I kind of get the philosophy. You do need run stuffers, especially in our division with the level of running backs that you're going up against. And an Ezekiel Elliott and, guys like that. I get it, but no. Again, I like the player. I don't like the pick. It's the value, I guess, is okay. He probably was being mocked maybe a little later, 20s in the first round. But he doesn't fill one of our needs, not one of our biggest needs. You could argue that a run stuffer was our 6th or 7th biggest need. I mean, you could even argue wide receiver was the biggest need. You could argue that linebacker is a bigger need, middle linebacker, corner, of course, safety. So, I mean, it was one of our lowest needs in this year's draft, in my opinion. So, while I do like the player, I do not like the pick. Then, at number 30, we took a player that I love. DeAndre Baker. I made a video on this guy. I absolutely love DeAndre Baker. Really good cornerback. Now, the knock on DeAndre Baker out of Georgia is that he's not the most athletically gifted corner. He also lacks some size. He's 5'11". I think he ran about a 4.5 something 40, where a guy like a Greedy Williams, tall and fast, but a poor tackler. DeAndre Baker is just a very good football player. Now, they had to trade up from 37 to 30. By doing so, they gave up 2 5th-round picks. Now, at the end of the day, 2 5th-round picks aren't going to kill you, but there's a very good chance Baker would have gotten there anyway. But to be fair, 2 corners came off the board in between picks 30 and 37. So maybe the Giants made the right decision there. If Baker was their guy, Baker may not have gotten to them. Maybe they didn't like Greedy Williams. Maybe they didn't like Arakiason. So if they had DeAndre Baker as a much higher grade than everybody else, it makes sense. Now, the feeling that I got from our first 3 picks and even our 4th pick, which I'm going to get to in a second, is the Giants went more for production, more for football technique players than athletes. They did not go for athletes in this draft. They went for guys that are grinders, tough football players. And I like DeAndre Baker a lot. Not the best athlete, but a gamer. The guy hasn't given up a touchdown in the last 2 years in college football. He has shut down some of the top wide receivers in the country, Deebo Samuel being one of them. I think he held him to 30 yards, got a pick in that game. And he's got great ball skills. Now, what you worry about with him, he's more of a zone corner because of his speed and his height. He can get beat over the top by a speedy receiver, so you're going to need help with the safety there. But, I mean, I like Baker. I do like that pick. He's probably my favorite pick out of anybody so far in this year's draft. And then, finally, our pick last night. A lot of people like the pick. I'm going to be completely honest with you. I didn't know much about this guy before the draft, and that is Ximines out of Old Dominion. Very small school. Ximines is going to be an edge rusher for the New York Giants, outside linebacker. Everything I read that this guy may not be a day one starter, but he's a guy that could break into the rotation over time. Some of the good things about this guy, again, great technique. Everything I read, the guy has great technique, great hands. He's got great moves to get to the quarterback. And when you look at some of the highlights, which I looked at before I made this video, the guy is a playmaker. He definitely is. I think he had 32 career sacks. You see him making leaping, interceptions up at the line of scrimmage, batting balls down. So there is certainly some potential there. His athleticism is not off the charts. He ran in the mid 4.7s at the combine. He's also lacked some. He's a little small, right? He's 6'4", 253. You'd probably want an extra 15, 20 pounds there. So he's a little undersized. He lacks some speed, but he's a really good football player. He has good instincts. He can get after the quarterback. Good move. So it's the same story with all these guys. DeAndre Baker's the same thing. Not the best athlete, but he's productive. He's a good football player. He's a grinder. It seems as if it's the same thing with this guy. So that seems to be what the Giants went after in this year's draft. They didn't go after the superior athletes. They passed on the Montez Sweats of the world. They went for the guys who had more production, the guys that are grinders and good football players at the collegiate level, and hopefully it translates to the NFL with the proper coaching. Overall, for the draft, I got to be honest. To me, the Daniel Jones pick, I didn't love it. I hope Daniel Jones succeeds. I hope he's a great quarterback. But overall, for the draft, just because of that pick alone, and the Dexter pick, I don't love. I like him. I think he's going to be a good football player, but I thought they could have got better players there. I'm going to give this draft a D. I think some people may give it an F. I'm going to give it a D. I like DeAndre Baker a lot. I think this kid's got some potential. Hopefully, they get some top targets here in the later rounds. They still have 6 more picks. They got 1 pick in the 4th. They got 1 pick in the 5th, 2 in the 6th, 2 in the 7th. We'll see if they could trade up maybe, get an extra 4th-round pick, extra 5th-round pick, whatever it is. But I think the Giants, there's still a lot of needs. Now, what have they done? They got an edge rusher, but I certainly think they could try to get more depth there. They could get a depth at corner. They got to go offensive line. They probably got to go offensive tackle here in this next round. Definitely in the 5th, if not the 4th. They got to get some depth there for the hog mollies. And we'll see, man. We'll see. Wide receiver, certainly a possibility. There's some really good ones on the board. I'm going to be doing a video on that right after this. But as always, if you liked what you watch, please subscribe. Drop a comment. Maybe give me a little thumbs up. Tell me your thoughts in the comments below. Cheers.